Psalm 107. We're going to land the plane today. Hard to imagine. But here we are, ready for verse 43. Let the one who is wise heed these things and ponder the loving deeds of the Lord. That's pretty much the best way, I think, to tie the bow on it and conclude. What things? Gosh, just a rolling cycle of a pattern of Israel history. It's of wandering from God, then rebelling against His way, His will, His commands, His design, reaping the consequences of that, then coming to their senses, crying out to God. God shows grace and mercy. They prosper. Life is good. They follow His commands. And then it'll take me just a couple of minutes, but I'm going to read the entire psalm out loud, and you'll see these. He begins, "Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. His love endures forever." In fact, when you start with this idea of the goodness of God and His enduring love, His love that endures forever, then you come to the end. Let the one who is wise heed these things and ponder the loving deeds of the Lord. All right, so give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. His love endures forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. Those He redeemed from the hand of the foe. Those He gathered from the lands, from east and west, from north and south. Some wandered in desert wastelands, finding no way to a city where they could settle. They were hungry and thirsty, and their lives ebbed away. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and He delivered them from their distress. He led them by a straight way to a city where they could settle. Let them give thanks to the Lord for His unfailing love and His wonderful deeds for mankind. Take note of how often that particular phrase pops up here. For He satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. Some sat in darkness, in utter darkness, prisoners suffering in iron chains, because they rebelled against God's commands and despised the plans of the Most High. So He subjected them to bitter labor. They stumbled, and there was no one to help. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and He saved them from their distress. He brought them out of darkness, the utter darkness, and broke away their chains. Let them give thanks to the Lord for His unfailing love and His wonderful deeds for mankind. There it is. For He breaks down gates of bronze. He cuts through bars of iron. Some became fools through their rebellious ways and suffered affliction because of their iniquities. They loathed all food and drew near the gates of death. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and He saved them from their distress. He sent out His word and healed them. He rescued them from the grave. Let them give thanks to the Lord for His unfailing love and His wonderful deeds for mankind. Let them sacrifice thank offerings and tell of His works with songs of joy. Some went out on the sea in ships. They were merchants on the mighty waters. They saw the works of the Lord, His wonderful deeds in the deep. For He spoke and stirred up a tempest that lifted high the waves. They mounted up to the heavens and went down to the depths. In their peril, their courage melted away. They reeled and staggered like drunkards. They were at their wits' end. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and He brought them out of their distress. He stilled the storm to a whisper. The waves of the sea were hushed. They were glad when it grew calm, and He guided them to their desired haven. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. Let them exalt him in the assembly of the people and praise him in the council of the elders. He turned rivers into a desert, flowing springs into thirsty ground, a fruitful land into a salt waste because of the wickedness of those who lived there. He turned the desert into pools of water and parched ground into flowing springs. There he brought the hungry to live, and they founded a city where they could settle. They sowed fields and planted vineyards that yielded a fruitful harvest. He blessed them, and their numbers greatly increased, and he did not let their herds diminish. Then their numbers decreased, and they were humbled by oppression, calamity, and sorrow. He who pours contempt on nobles made them wander in a trackless waste. But he lifted the needy out of their affliction and increased their families like flocks. The upright see and rejoice, but all the wicked shut their mouths. Let the one who is wise heed these things and ponder the loving deeds of the Lord. Okay. It starts out with the admonition to give thanks. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Ending with okay, this could be just a suggestion. It also, I think you can take it as a command. I take it as the way of wisdom. The way of wisdom would say, look at Israel's history and take heed to these things. In other words, pay attention. What's the point? Well, some would say the point is when you disobey, when you reject God's ways, there's nothing good that will come of it. You will reap the consequences of that willful decision. And this is true. But what are we supposed to ponder? What are we supposed to most pay attention to? He says, heed these things. Pay attention to the story and ponder the loving deeds of the Lord. It would be just too bad if all we saw was how God punished people who disobeyed. If all we saw was the consequences of willful, unselfish choices, if that was it, that'd be a travesty. And I think the psalmist is saying, pay attention, because this is a pattern which will repeat itself. But ponder, meaning dwell deeply on the loving deeds of the Lord. All right. So now, let's try to personalize this a little bit. It's kind of like a homework assignment, which obviously you can listen to and think, well, that's a good idea, and not do anything with it. This is up to you. Here's my recommendation, my encouragement. Go into your own life story and think about any of the cycles you see there, because we all have patterns that we repeat. And not all the patterns that we repeat have these horrible negative consequences and repercussions, but some do. And it's worth looking at the patterns of our lives. There have been times where my pride and my selfishness have stood in the way of me following on with God's design. They have been obstacles. Because of that, they've been obstacles for the benefits of loving God and obeying his commands out of that love. Yeah, okay, don't dwell on those, but see them. Heed this in your own history. But don't get locked up seeing only your disobedience. I know many of the people that I've counseled over the years, all they see is their disobedience. All they see is how bad they are. Part of my job as a counselor is to help them. We don't pretend that didn't happen. That's not healthy. But I want to help them see a more complete picture. And the complete picture is not just my disobedience and the consequences of that, but my disobedience and the loving deeds of the Lord. I remember the first time I saw it was probably 40 some years ago. The poem Footprints, what I'm talking about, footprints in the sand. There's two sets of footprints, and then there's one set of footprints. What's that about? And Jesus says, that's when I carried you. It's not original with me, but there are times when it wouldn't be just one set of footprints. It would be one set of footprints and then two troughs where he had to drag me. But here's one of the wonderful things about grace. When I'm kicking and screaming, he still carries me. There wouldn't be two troughs where he drugged me. He doesn't drag me. He carries me. And that is the summation of the loving deeds of the Lord. But don't leave it there in the general. Come back to the specific. And this is, if you were stacking up, okay, here's my history and my patterns. Okay, they're real, they're there. Let's not deny them. But let's not get stuck only with them, because over here, and I can't even make it big enough, are the loving deeds of the Lord. This is what to dwell on. This is the thing to ponder. And one of the ways to ponder it, and the gateway to pondering the loving deeds of the Lord, is to begin enumerating them. Now, start with the present and work your way into the past. You could do it the other way, but you'll struggle more starting back and then moving forward. Start today. I'm not a morning person. I told you this. If you know me, you know this about me. It was, a few minutes before I started recording, I thought, man, I just hate how I feel in the mornings. And then it occurred to me, I think I should be grateful to see another morning. Okay. Isn't that an expression isn't that a loving deed of the Lord in my life? He carried me through the night. I'm up. I'm ambulatory. Am I like, this is my optimal, I love it? No, it doesn't need to be. So start where you are and work your way back into the past, enumerating the times and ways, the specific times and ways, if you can remember it, the day, and the loving deeds of the Lord. It's a good place to start virtually every day. And celebrating, remembering, dwelling on the the loving deeds of the Lord. I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.